This is Southern Cross News with Joe Palmer.
The jury is considering its verdict in the trial of a man accused of causing grievous bodily harm to an 11-year-old girl by shooting her in the head. Nathan Richard Campbell has pleaded not guilty to the charge, with the court hearing closing statements from both the Crown and the prosecution today.
Nathan Campbell sat here in the dock in a pale blue shirt as the Crown and prosecution gave their closing addresses to the jury. Mr Campbell stands accused of causing grievous bodily harm by shooting Phoenix Newitt in the head, who was just 11 at the time. The incident occurred in Deloraine on the night of August 29 last year. Phoenix's mother and Mr Campbell's partner had previously got into a verbal and physical altercation at Woolworths, which resulted in another verbal fight in Stagg Street. The court heard that's when Mr Campbell armed himself with a rifle and shot at the vehicle Phoenix was in. The Crown, in summary today, said it's not disputed that Phoenix was injured or that Mr Campbell fired the shot, saying, "We had a man who was angry, he made a poor decision, and that doesn't mean he's not responsible for those actions." And as bad as the verbal abuse was, there was no immediate threat of physical violence and no provocation. The Crown telling the jury he shot at a vehicle regardless of the risk and knew there could be people inside. But that was refuted by the defence, who told the court if his client had known someone would have been injured, he wouldn't have fired, and that he did not see any risk at the time. The jury will return here for further deliberation tomorrow morning and have been asked by Justice Pearce to carefully consider all of the evidence in this case and if the Crown has made its case beyond reasonable doubt. Jessica Moran, Southern Cross News.
A woman charged in connection with the murder of Jake Anderson Bretner has appeared in the Supreme Court. 25-year-old Jamar Clark stands accused of being an accessory after the fact of murder and has previously pleaded not guilty to the charge. Mr Bretner's remains were found near Myrtle Park in August. Ms Clark will remain in custody with her next court appearance on December 7. Federal health authorities have found the Bupa Aged Care Centre at South Hobart isn't providing adequate care to its residents, forcing it to impose sanctions on the facility. A letter from the Federal Health Department sent to residents and their families says federal funding for new residents will be held back until next year, with staff to receive training in the gaps that have been identified. An advisor will be recruited to help staff with providing adequate clinical care, including pain management and personal care. Bupa has apologised, saying the issues don't represent the high standards of care deserved by residents, and it's working to address the shortcomings. A controversial decision by the Teachers' Union to boycott writing comments in student report cards has angered many in school communities today. Teachers are demanding better working conditions and pay, but parents say this latest action could be putting student learning at risk.
Following the strikes that shut down schools across the state last week, teachers are continuing to demand improved pay and conditions.
If we want our kids to get the very best education, teachers have to be given the time to teach, the time to support and the time to lead.
The government has offered all public servants a 2% wages rise, but the union says it's not enough. In protest, at the end of this term, teachers will not write any comments in student report cards.
Parents will still get the A2E reports, but we have said no comments from teachers.
I know from my previous experience as a primary school teacher that during report writing time, teachers are working on weekends, they're working late at night, and they do that through their own goodwill. A
controversial move that's angered many.
Parents rely on those comments at the end of the year so they know where to move forward with their child in 2019. We think it's an irresponsible move and one that we're hoping that the union will reconsider.
And the government is refusing to increase its offer.
We believe that we've got a fair and affordable offer on the table of 6% pay rise for our public service over 3 years.
I think the union on this occasion is way out of step with public opinion, with parent opinion.
The union promising further action is on the way if the government does not up its offer. Michelle Wisby, Southern Cross News.
A troubled pedestrian bridge project in Hobart has hit another hurdle, with a construction lift planned for this weekend scrapped due to safety concerns. Our reporter Louise Hedger joins us live from the Cenotaph now. Lou, good evening. What's behind the delays?
Joe, the build of the bridge to Remembrance has been a bit of a saga. It was meant to go ahead last month, but that didn't work because of issues with the cladding. The revised plan was for it to be lifted in place by next Monday morning, so it would be in time for the centenary of the signing of the armistice on Remembrance Day, which is next Sunday, the 11th of November. But that won't happen now, with the lift scrapped due to a windy weather forecast. Contractors say gusts of up to 90 kilometres an hour will make it too dangerous for the operation. Obviously, this is quite disappointing for the workers and those commemorating the armistice. Earlier today, we spoke with the state RSL president and the project's operations manager.
And I think from all the veterans right across the spectrum of ex-service organisations and their families would be disappointed at the news. But I guess we have to err on the side of safety, and I completely understand that, but disappointing at the same time.
You can imagine is that you got two big cranes in the air lifting about a 30-metre section, about 10 metres wide, and with gust of wind, it'll just topple it over. That's the extreme position. Getting the cranes and actually to set them up in this situation is as critical at the same time.
So Joe, despite a raft of public notices telling the public that this highway would be closed over the weekend, it will in fact be open, and that project is hoped that it will be completed in the next few weeks.
Yeah, let's hope so. Thanks very much for that, Louise. Accommodation giant Airbnb has refuted accusations that its rise in popularity has contributed to Tasmania's housing crisis. In the state to front a parliamentary inquiry into short-stay accommodation, the company says it has played no part in our housing shortage.
An Airbnb executive making a rare appearance in the state, arguing the accommodation booking site has not contributed to our housing crisis.
People look for a simple answer to a complex problem, but I think what we're seeing here in Hobart, we've got a shortage of supply, and that's being addressed by more homes coming on the market, more hotels coming on the market.
Here to face an inquiry into the short-stay accommodation market. Today there are almost 5,000 Airbnb properties in Tasmania, more than double 2 years ago.
The typical host here in Tasmania makes about $8,000, $9,000 per year from Airbnb, and that goes a long way to paying off a credit card bill or paying for a family holiday or contributing to the mortgage.
He said even though entire homes were advertised, it did not mean properties were being taken out of the rental market.
Just because something's an entire home, usually it's people sharing their whole home when they're not living in it because they're away on holidays, or sharing a holiday home up or down the coast they've done for decades.
Amid calls for increased regulation, new draft legislation aims to force companies like Airbnb to share their data.
To ensure on one hand that everybody's playing within the rules, on the other hand it'll require the short stay platforms to provide us with data about what's actually going on so we know for sure.
Corporates who come and operate within a state like Tasmania have to take responsibility for the impact they may have, the footprint they may leave. We have to safeguard Tasmanians.
We want to continue to partner with the government to make sure that there's a conversation about what's sustainable and respectful, to make sure these new rules and regulations do continue to work and continue to grow in a responsible way.
Airbnb faces the inquiry tomorrow. Michelle Wisby, Southern Cross News.
It's that time of year again where men from across Australia sport a moustache for Movember, a campaign to raise money and awareness of men's health issues. The Mobar Mobros today kicking off with a clean shave and a renewed promise to support their mates.
Everyone's aware of that mental health, but we're not quite sure what to do, which is why it's so important that we know how to be good listeners and create a community where people feel they can speak up.
For me, it was like, well, how do I look after them because they always look after me? So it's just that camaraderie and mateship, which is what Movember's always about.
The team is the highest fundraising group in the country and is aiming to raise more than $130,000 this month. Smokers could face fines of more than $800 as cigarettes become outlawed in the centre of Ulverston. It's the first town in Tasmania to enforce a ban, and the council hopes others will follow in its footsteps.
It's a warning smokers can't walk over. From today, the butt bins are gone from the centre of Ulverston, as those wanting to light up are forced elsewhere.
Had complaints from shop owners who had had people congregating outside their businesses, and it was making it a not very friendly area to be in.
The council ban applying to 3 main streets was unanimously backed by aldermen. Those like pharmacist Colin Wood are confident shoppers won't miss lingering smoke outside stores.
Most people will appreciate not having that and being able to shop in Ulverston without having the smell of smoke around.
There's always that concern of those that may not obey the laws, but as a community we want to get behind it, and we want to be able to tap somebody on the shoulder and simply say, this is a smoke-free zone.
Ulverston is the first town in Tasmania to enforce such a ban, and only the second in Australia. It's got the blessing of the Cancer Council.
In Tasmania, we're the second highest in Australia for smoking rates, and that means about 74,000 people are still smoking within Tasmania.
Under state government laws, smokers could face fines ranging from $163 up to $820, but they'll be warned first. The Central Coast Mayor denies it's a step too far.
You know, we're not going out with a big stick to fine people straight away. We want to educate people and get them to do the right thing.
Sean McComish, Southern Cross News.
Now let's take a look at the day's business and finance news thanks to Tasplan, your local super fund. The Australian share market lifted a little today thanks to some banking and mining stocks. The ASX 200 index has risen by 10.5 points. A short time ago, the Australian dollar was trading at 71.27 US cents and 108.27 New Zealand cents. It's been a day of misfortunes for Tasmanian football fans, with confirmation favourites St Kilda and Melbourne will make the trip to Hobart. The news wasn't as good in Launceston, with Wooden Spooners Carlton the only Victorian club to play Hawthorn during season 2019.
AFL Tasmania was talking up the positives today after news broke of the state's 2019 footy fixture. Hawthorn will kick off its Tasmanian sojourn against Carlton in round 6. Port Power will land in Launceston in round 10. The Dockers in mid-July, and the Brisbane Lions will tackle the Hawks a fortnight later. AFL Tasmania is welcoming the 3 Saturday games, even if the visitors have small Tasmanian fan bases.
I don't think the Tassie Hawks fans have been dudded. I think there'll be some 4 winnable games, so if you're a Hawks fan, I think that's a positive thing.
Launceston Mayor-elect Albert Van Zetten says he can't wait for the return of interstate footy fans.
They love it here and they spend 2 or 3 days, and the city itself, when we have a Saturday afternoon game, is great for the weekend. So many people are out and about having their breakfast and their lunches and their drinks, and that's fantastic for our economy.
Meanwhile, North Melbourne's Tasmanian campaign will kick off with a Saturday night game against Sydney in round 9. GWS will bring a very limited cheer squad in June before fan favourites St Kilda and Melbourne try to upset the Kangas in rounds 16 and 23. Hobart's incoming mayor admits she's no footy fanatic, but plenty of businesses are.
I'm very aware that the AFL games do bring a lot of event-based economic activity. Just like the Dark Mofo and any festival we have.
Football's governing body says regardless of whether the fixture is viewed as win, lose or draw by Tasmanians, everyone should still buy tickets and enjoy the show.
We want to see the crowds up around the 15,000, so I think that's something we need to work towards.
Andrew McCarthy, Southern Cross News.
Good evening. A wide range of temperatures today, from -4 at Butler's Gorge to our top of 25 in Hobart. Launceston recorded 22, Burnie 16 and Devonport 18 degrees. Just a few light showers over the north and a thunderstorm on King Island was all the front brought today. Well, so far anyway. No significant rain hit the gauges. Campania, Grove and Friendly Beaches all 24, Ooze 23, Flinders Island 22, King Island 21, St Helens recorded 20, Lowhead 18 degrees and Lyre-Weenie 1 behind. And just partly cloudy over the east today, with cloud at all levels moving over the rest of the state from the northwest. Now, more of that streaming cloud over Victoria and the Bight, low-level cloud and some thunderstorms over the interior of the Northern Territory along with Western and South Australia. We have a little convective cloud too over the tropics. Tomorrow, a strong cold front moves over Tasmania. A high extends a ridge up over Queensland. Low pressure troughs over Central Australia ahead of the next front as well. Winds west northwesterly at 20 to 30 knots, tending northwesterly late afternoon and reaching up to 35 knots. Seas rising to 4 metres late in the day. Gale warning from Tasman Island down and back around to St Helens Point. A strong wind warning for remaining waters. A small craft wind alert for the lakes, and a very high fire danger for parts of the east coast and the southeast. For tomorrow, showers increasing for Hobart, 25 degrees, up to 24 for Huonville, a windy afternoon, becoming windy too for Campania with a shower, and 26. Launceston, possible morning storm and showery, 22 the top, 20 for Devonport and 19 the high for Georgetown. Similar forecast for everywhere in the north. Burnie, 20 degrees with a storm and maybe a shower, 19 degrees for Strawn and 20 the top for Wynyard. While for the east tomorrow, St Helens a possible morning storm with showers later, 23 the top, 24 for Swansea and Port Arthur. UV at a high 7 across the state. On Saturday, showers mainly over the west, south and Bass Strait, small hail over the west and south and snow to 600 metres. Partly cloudy for the east coast on Sunday with possible showers elsewhere. And on Monday, a similar forecast with showers increasing over the west. Partly cloudy for Perth and Adelaide tomorrow, a few showers and a cool change for Derby Day in Melbourne. A sunny 37 degrees in Sydney, partly cloudy over Brisbane and Darwin. And partly cloudy here, 18 degrees in Hobart, 19 in Launceston and 16 in Devonport. Joe, tomorrow I'm going to shout you lunch. It's World Sandwich Day. Hold on, no, I'll make you one and bring it in.
Oh, I can hardly wait. Thanks for that, Merv. That's all from the news team for now. Have a lovely evening and we'll see you a little later. Bye-bye.